I'm learning how to grade fast because it's so much grading too. It just kills you.
It, yeah.
Just
It,
kills you.
no, no, grading is, I mean, I have to do grading tonight. I haven't done it. I always do it in the weekends usually. And I haven't done any this weekend, so I have to do it tonight before I go to bed. And I won't get it all done just because there's so much I have to grade. But it's the worst part of the job is grading, I think. I just hate doing it.
And now I'm switching to hard copy quizzes, which
Hmm.
is way better in a way because I don't know what they're doing online when I give them the Google Forms. And they tend to freak out, which I like. I like them freaking out over the quizzes. And so, um, anyway. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, we are discussing how film impacts the classroom. Now, we reviewed many films. I should have counted how many films we reviewed before this episode, but we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of good movies. We've seen some clunkers, but I thought we'd talk about the movies that have influenced our teaching, either our teaching style or teaching strategies, because there is a movie I want to discuss in which a teacher utilizes a strategy that I thought was interesting, and I borrowed for my class, and it was very effective. And I would have never thought of it. And on the face of it, it seems pretty basic from what I was in terms of what I was teaching, but I don't think I would have thought of it. But let's start with you, Jake. What has there been a movie that we reviewed where you noticed a strategy that you've utilized in class?
Yeah, this last year we watched a film called Radical, and it was a 2023 film, I believe. And it takes place in Mexico on the border, I believe in Texas border with Mexico. And it's one of the poorest schools in Mexico, this elementary school. It might be a K through 8, I can't remember right now. But this teacher is is presented with these students and does not have a lot of, he has no computers, he has no, really not too many supplies. Their school is real close to a dump. And so I could assume that it's just doesn't smell great around there. It's just poverty is everywhere around. Now, what I took with it, Ruben, was just realizing that, man, a lot of times we don't have resources and we go, oh, throw our hands up. Why am I gonna do that then? I can't do that activity or I can't do that lesson. But he went because he had some resources, and he would go home and he would look at his computer and he would say, this is something that this student would like. And he really, what I really liked about him too was that he saw his students and he saw their strengths. One was really good scientists, one was more interested in psychology, one was interested in food. So he would go to these kids and he would present some information that he came up with or he found, and he would get them excited. And even they would sometimes go to the local library to check out some books. And so for me, is when we talk about strategy, more of a situation where you are looking at what you have around you and and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I might not have everything I need, but I'm going to use the items I have around me to be a better teacher, to be able to present things to my students, to get them excited about it, to get them excited about learning. And his kids were very excited. So I think that's one of our biggest things that we need to do is, at least for me, I should say, is to continue that excitement for our students because they're coming to school. A lot of times they don't want to be there, right? Maybe they have some other teachers throughout their day they're not too excited about seeing. And so, what are we doing to excite them about education, about science, or about psychology, or about food, whatever it is you're encouraging them. So I really enjoy that film and more about getting students excited. And I know it's not the biggest like strategy, but it's something that has affected me thinking about how can I continue to, or how can I really remember that daily and how to present my material to my students.
Yeah, and I think that it's not always easy to vary the assignment. especially if you're teaching a particular thing, very specific thing. However, you can maybe switch up the way in which they can deliver the assignment, and find creative ways, because you mentioned an article or a certain book, a certain strategy or approach that is unique to that individual. And that is important, it reminds me of the Rick Rubin interview that went on recently with Rick Beato, where he said that when he deals with a particular artist, he doesn't want that artist to sound like AC/DC or this person or that person. He wants to get that sound from that artist because that's a unique person, that's a unique group. And sometimes I kind of try to transfer it to our world, is that, why am I trying to change this kid? I'm going to get what they're saying and find what, their talents. So that's really important. But a few years ago, we reviewed a movie titled Why Shoot the Teacher? Why Shoot the Teacher? It's a 1977 movie starring Bud Cort. And it's really a strange kind of thing watching it, because it feels a little bit dated. It might throw people, but if you give it a chance, there's a lot to be said, a lot happening in the movie, with this guy who is thrown into this environment where you've got various different learning abilities and various different grades. It is truly a nightmare for a teacher. Like, if you could create a nightmare scenario, he was in it. Because how do you create a lesson plan for such various grades like this, learnings, abilities? But the guy really went for it, and he tried. He gave it 100%. And but there was this lesson he gave in the movie where he was teaching Shakespeare. I can't remember what play he was teaching, but he had some students share the lines, recite the line, and he was, and I do this with my students. I have them get up and perform a scene. But what I usually do is I'll get 2 or 3 volunteers, get them up, present, and the students like it. And the ones that are presenting get the most out of it. They never forget what the line means. It's really an effective way to teach Shakespeare. And the students see it and they laugh, and it's a fun little thing that we do. But what I remember in his lesson is he got everybody involved, even the students who couldn't understand maybe the lines or wouldn't be able to read them very well. He got them to play other parts, even the wind. He had students blowing, and it was like a winter's day, and he had some students playing the branch. He turned it into a whole production where everybody was involved in the class. And I thought, that's really cool. That gets everybody involved. I need to do that so that nobody gets, hides. So I was thinking a couple of weeks ago about Romeo and Juliet, and there's a scene where Romeo crashes Juliet's house. Now, he hadn't met Juliet yet. He was just looking for the girl he liked at the time. And that's when he sees Juliet and falls for her. But what happens is he crashes the Capulets' home, and that's a big deal because those are the enemies. And what I did is I had students play Romeo, Juliet, and some of the major characters, Lord Capulet. But those who didn't have the main, some of the main parts, which is like 25 of them, the rest of the class, I had them all play a Capulet because they all were Capulets. And I had one servant because the servant had a line and she came in and served. And they were all involved. And I had them play it like, we're going to do this again. How would you react if your sworn enemy who wants to kill you walks in? Because the Montagues want to kill, they're at each other's throats. And they really acted, even though they might not have had lines. So it was a real useful lesson, and it allowed me to get everybody involved. And I wouldn't have thought of it if it hadn't been for that movie. Why shoot the teacher? So
Were the kids, did the kids enjoy doing it? Did they enjoy it?
absolutely,
Oh, cool. Okay.
they did enjoy it, and it's again. I want to point out, I had previously same class did a line or two of how the play starts, where do you bite your thumb at Misa? And it's one of the first lines in the play, and it's where the Montagues and Capulets get into it. And three or four students were, but I noticed, because nobody else, I didn't get anybody else up. I noticed there were some students who were like looking around, not paying attention. And I made a mental note of that. I go, okay, next time. And then I thought of the movie. And so that second time, yes, they were all into it and they were laughing, because then you had some students with the lines, and I encouraged them to do it in the British, the English accent,
Right.
and they were laughing, and more importantly, they know the scene, like they know exactly what's going on in the play, because that's one of the challenges, is how do we understand this language, So it was very useful.
Very cool. Very cool.
Is there any other movie that you wanted to talk about?
I just maybe just briefly, Ruben. There's so many movies that we've seen, and I would say I've taken a little bit out of all of them. But I guess as a mentor, Tuesdays with Morrie really spoke to me, because this character was a real true story by the name of his name was Morrie, and he was meeting with a former student every Tuesday, right? And he would give him a life lesson, right? Like forgive yourself or love one another, devote yourself to your community, create something that gives you purpose and meaning. So he had every Tuesday was a topic, and marriage and so forth. And so for me though, I realized I have these little, even if it's just 2-3 minutes, I try to do it every day before the class, maybe at the end of class, is to try to connect with somebody and try to share some truth. When I say truth, like just life truths, right? Because sometimes, even just recently, I was telling him a story about a student that was stealing from a store across the street, and I talked about that. And I go, well, we could rationalize and make this theft okay, but why isn't it okay? So we talk about it. So I think it's okay to once in a while have those those lessons that maybe don't have to do with, like, I teach psychology and government, but deal with lessons of life, and how we should treat one another, and how we should just learn how to, even like he shared, one of his big ones was forgiving one another, or forgiving yourself. And so just to do those things, to talk to your kids, to connect with them. I really try to do this, Ruben. By the time the school year ends, I try to connect with every single student with some little conversation, and that they'll know that I see them, because a lot of times it's easy to not be seen. So yeah, I really like that film, Tuesdays with Morrie. It's based on a book, as you know. We both read it, and we read it for the podcast. So if you guys haven't seen it,
yeah, I actually don't recommend you. I actually don't recommend they watch the movie.
Actually, you're right. The book is way better. I'm glad you said that. But the movie, it reminded me of the book, and I guess maybe that was maybe this would have been better if we said books, right? But I did like it, a reminder of the book. So I guess I could say that.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Goodbye.